Now, this next piece is something I was not expecting in this research. Everything else kind of made sense to me. It kind of came together. But this last piece really puts a bow on it.
I saw CERNs trying to be made all around the world. People were trying to copy what's happening in Switzerland. They were doing a massive one in China, and I saw one in America. I saw them trying to be built. But when they do this, there's actual something that happens. I saw it was like a black portal that was created like Stargate. It was really thin. I would say it's probably about 3 or 4 foot. It looked like of a black circle that you could reach through as the dimension.
Now, this is the interesting thing. It's always what he sees. And a lot of things he sees, this is how he explains it. He says, I saw this thing, I felt this thing, I heard this thing in my dreams or in the prophecy or whatever he feels. And most people would write this off. But he's been correct more than once, including the Louisiana terror attacks. Now you're going to say, okay, now why are you showing us Lady Gaga performing? Well, her, like many other artists and actors and people in Hollywood and politics and that kind of stuff, very powerful, elite people. A lot of them, if you listen to their interviews, they will hint at very strongly that they sold their soul. Now look at this performance and tell me that this is not demonic. Now, I don't care who you are. That is not a normal performance. And you're going to say, okay, that's just a one-off. All right. I know many of you have probably seen this, but this is another example where they're putting it blatantly in your face.
I must appease him with the gift of a man-child. Come to me. I must feed you. I must feed you to the river place. No, take him. No, take the baby. Take the baby. Take the baby.
Now look at these people applauding this. They're normalizing this type of behavior. And again, you're going to say, what does this have to do with CERN? What does it have to do with the E-files? Well, I think you know about jerky. If you know about jerky, then this right here, him feeding the baby to this demon or whatever this is, this kind of goes in line with what we're seeing in those emails. They're bringing it out in slow bits until it becomes normalized and everyone gets used to it and it doesn't seem shocking anymore. And another example, this goes back to pizza. Again, the E-files.
So I borrowed Pharrell's hat and I thought I'd pass it around and get some money for the pizza because nobody ever really, what do you have, Harvey? 200? 200. This is start. This is a start. We'll see. What do you have, John? Would you have 20? Kevin?
Fine. That's for you.
Thanks so much.
Now what she's doing, she's going around and she's collecting money for pizza. And everyone in there is looking around laughing because they probably know exactly what she's talking about. But they're making this stuff more public so that it desensitizes us to it. This stuff has been going on for a while, but it's starting to ramp up. So you're thinking, so what? This is just elites. They're just doing their quirky things, right? Well, now we're going to start putting pieces together. Okay, so we're going to get more into the actual legitimate information and data that links possibly the E-files to cultism to CERN. This year and the previous Olympics, very clearly a devil-worshipping style, satanic, ritualistic opening. You can't even argue it. They had horns, beasts, idolatry, looked like ritualistic sacrifice. This is openly in public for the Olympics, okay? Now, this right here, this was the opening ceremony for CERN.
She joins us now watching the ceremony. I was just saying there.
Look at the symbolism. You have these crazy-looking flying entities. You have, again, the goat heads, the horns.
Imogen, this very enjoyable spectacle with dancers, and I presume some people that have taken part in the project as well, shows just...
More horns. Now, they're being very obvious with this. You cannot argue that this does not have some sort of strange cult-like, at least, or satanic, ritualistic feel to it.
How immensely proud the Swiss are of this tunnel for so many reasons.
Look at the stuff they're carrying. They're carrying around skulls and bones. They're carrying around a lamb. I'm assuming a sacrificial lamb. And then there, There's a symbolism like it's a portal. So this is very important. This is not just a performance. They're putting this stuff right in front of our faces. Look at that. You can't tell me that's not supposed to symbolize a portal and beings coming through a portal. That couldn't be more obvious. Now, this is at CERN. This is supposed to be an instrument used for scientific research. What does any of this occult-like performance have to do anything with the scientific research? Nothing is the answer. And now, many of you, this may seem graphic to some. There is no blood or anything shown. There's no actual wound or anything shown. But this is the video that everyone says in news and other articles and things, and I'll show you some online influencers are also backing that this is just a prank. This is a ha-ha-ha funny prank that was done by the scientists. First of all, why would the scientists give a shit about doing pranks whatsoever? They're scientists. They're not performers. And then it's in front of this statue, which we'll get to here in a second. We'll talk more about it. This statue that is outside of CERN. Very, very strange choice, and definitely has a very specific meaning. You see these dark figures coming out. They're going in front of this statue. Again, very cult-like, very ritualistic. You see this woman in white, clearly supposed to be the sacrifice. Now, this is supposed to be a prank, right? This person up front, have her lay down. Person up front pulls out a knife. You can see it shine there for a second. You can see it shine again. Goes down and stabs her in the neck. Prank or not, that's pretty dark. Based on the things we've seen in the e-files and a lot of the new information coming out, I wouldn't put it past as being real. I have no proof one way or another, but based on what we've seen, it wouldn't be far-fetched. But you can see how this is starting to kind of come together. You have CERN, which is supposed to be scientific, but now we're seeing these strange satanic ritualistic type things being done, not just for the opening, but also this prank that we see here, right? And then we have the portal imagery that was there during the opening. And we're going to look more into that stuff here in a minute, but the statue is what we should talk about next. It's Shiva Nataraja, or the Lord of the Dance. It's a profound Hindu icon representing Lord Shiva as the cosmic dancer who creates, preserves, and destroys the universe in an eternal cycle. Key symbolic elements: the Ring of Fire represents the cosmos, which is continuously created and destroyed. Damaru, small drum beating the rhythm of creation. And it goes down and talks about all these different details. But one of the key takeaways is the sculpture is designed to inspire devotees, indicating that through devotion, one can be freed from the cycle of birth and death. Now, think about that as an occult. We've seen situations in the past. I'm not sure how old you are, but when I was younger, like back in the 80s, they would have these random cults where they'd find 20, 50, 100 people dead, and they all drank poison together because they would go through this type of situation where they would devote to some entity or some being or some person. Sometimes it was a human that was alive on Earth, and then they would, at the command of that person or entity, to free the cycle of birth and death. They're brainwashed. I'm going to preface the next part of this video as I actually like Cleo and I like her videos, but this part was interesting. She does this video, what's really happening at CERN, and obviously very, very popular, 7.1 million views. There's great information in here, but the part I thought was interesting is what she included in this video. She went out of her way to point this out.
Well, if you look on the internet, you'll see that there are a lot of theories, from ending the world to creating black holes to it already ended the world and we're living inside a black hole to paranormal activity to new dimensions to hooded figures performing rituals to summon the devil. That last one was a prank, by
Now see how fast she was to say, well, that last one, that was a prank, by the way. And the article that she's talking about, this fake human sacrifice film that CERN with pranking scientists suspected, not proven. Okay, so she's saying that this is 100% a prank, just a prank, ha ha ha. But this is saying it's suspected. They don't know. There's no proof one way or another. And this says something about staging an occult rite. Sometimes when things like this come out, you have to really ask yourself, is this them putting it right in your face on purpose and then making it seem like it's a prank or some kind of contrived thing, or in some cases doing it blatantly right in front of you so that it sounds so crazy that you don't listen to it.
The way, no, we are not doing any of that.
She said, we are not doing any of that. Obviously, she doesn't work for CERN, but she's speaking as though she's their spokesperson, which I find very interesting as well. But like I said, great video. Go check it out. And then, of course, there's lots of money going here. Private donors pledged 860 million euros for CERN's future circular collider. Now, this money is where we're going to start talking about possible connections to the E-files, as well as, well, I'm not going to give it away yet. Another thing people talk about is their logo. If you look at it, it's 6, 6, 6. And most people might say, oh, it's just a coincidence. It doesn't mean anything. But when you look at symbolism, and you're talking about these occult rituals, and you're talking about Shiva being the statue at the opening, and you see them talking about portals and all this other stuff, and occult rituals that were pranks, where they look like they're sacrificing someone, you have to start questioning things like this. The next thing we're going to talk about is Zorro Ranch. Now, Epstein owned it. He owned a lot of properties, including the island, and he also owned properties in New York City and Sweden and other places, apparently, and they've been searched already. They've already been looked into, but for some reason, as of right now, they have not looked into Zorro Ranch. Why it's interesting is there are allegations that things happening there were worse than the things we're seeing that might have happened on the island.
Jeff Epstein's 10,000-acre ranch in New Mexico, known as Zorro, it had an airstrip and helicopter pad. So everybody's talking about the island, but I had no idea he also had an entire ranch.
Jeff Epstein providing more information on the convicted sex offender's crimes. Among the files, claims bodies are buried near Epstein's Zorro Ranch in Santa Fe County. Tonight, the State Land Commission is demanding an investigation.
Someone claiming they were a former staffer at Zorro Ranch. Writing, did you know somewhere in the hills outside of the Zorro, 2 foreign girls were buried on orders of...
Only 2?
So you get the idea. My point of this is much bigger than just an isolated island. This is much bigger than just CERN. You're talking about hundreds or thousands of people involved in these type of activities, maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions that have these same beliefs, these occult satanic style beliefs. And they're in positions of power. Doctors, lawyers, scientists, teachers, judges, politicians, leaders.
Very weird. I won't go into details here to keep this video safe. You can look into it later if you're curious. The journalist directly connects this to CERN's activity. The last time CERN was turned up to full capacity, strange things happened around the world. The Earth's magnetosphere was affected, and an unexplained spiral was observed in Norway. Then it asks the question, point blank, is there a possibility that CERN opened an interdimensional portal? What are they really looking for? To answer that, it brings in a voice from the other side, a researcher named Sophia Kay, whose brother is a quantum physicist who worked on the collider. She addresses concerns about CERN, telling, "This isn't an episode of Saturday morning cartoons. Sorry to disappoint anyone wanting to test the event horizon theory, but I think we're stuck here in this time zone for a little bit longer."
So if you're not familiar, there are concerns that just like the people talking about black holes and other things that could happen and really destroying the universe, right? That's one thing that some people have brought up about this. They're smashing together billions of particles that are tiny, releasing huge amounts of energy. Some we've seen are hotter than the sun. Now, if something were to happen, if there was a mishap, it's not outside the realm of reality to think that it could end the Earth or end the universe, right? Just like nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, we don't know what's going to happen. And this is something that they're experimenting with. They have not mastered it. This is all new ground for them. So in addition to the things we've already heard, there's this interdimensional or interdimensionality that's an aspect of this as well. Are they trying to bring other beings into this time and this realm and this planet?
The CERN Large Hadron Collider is smashing particles together at near the speed of light. Most of the time, this means incredible discoveries, but other times it sparks rumors, fear, and even panic among the very physicists running the experiments. These are forbidden experiments at CERN that terrify even scientists themselves.
If it scares them, I think we should probably be concerned too. And there's a pretty good chance they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. But due to money, or occult beliefs or whatever it may be, they're pushing forward. And to speak a little bit more about how this is global, schools all over the U.S. are canceling pictures due to Leon Black, the co-founder of the parent company that owns LifeTouch, being listed in the Epstein files. LifeTouch is the biggest school photography company in America. I remember when I was a kid, that's who took our pictures. For each child photographed, detailed information is obtained on the child, including name, age, and address, and a lot of times their parents as well. This information was apparently sold to trafficking networks. So not only do we have this strange stuff going on at CERN, and we're going to get a lot more into the CERN stuff here in a minute. I'm going to go pretty deep. And then you have the occult, then you have the jerky, you have the trafficking, and you have the treatment on the island and on Zorro Ranch and other places like that, which we're finding out there were many more places like that. Now we're finding out that everyday things that are used, everyday services, everyday companies like this, we're selling information to those networks. That should scare all of you, especially if you have children. And yes, even the schools.
In case you didn't know, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, Robert Maxwell, owned the Pergamon Press, which, by the way, Pergamon is another word for Satan's throne in the Book of Revelation. And he partnered with McGraw-Hill, you know, one of the most popular textbooks for any public school. The more you know.
So it goes pretty deep. And this has been going on for decades. This is not something new. So they've had a long time to work all this out and set this up. Then we have this documentary here, and this is just a short piece of it, but this person claims to know what the actual Large Hadron Collider was designed for and what its purpose was.
On the drawing board at CERN than what is being admitted. Even Adam Barker of Tech Bubble wrote of CERN a while back that with the LHC, CERN are expecting to find other dimensions and open portals to these dimensions. If you have the image of Stargate in your head right now, you're spot on. That's what he said. And then he went on to draw parallels to the biblical story of Jacob's ladder. Perhaps you remember the dream that says, behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Then Jacob wakes up from his sleep and he says, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid. And he says, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God.
Now, this is a very interesting documentary if you want to go watch it, but the general idea is that the creation of this from people who were there and were in the meetings and on the whiteboards and that kind of stuff are saying that the purpose of this was to open portals and stuff, not to discover this God particle or research dark matter and things like that, like we've been told. Now, again, these are just allegations, but they're hard to ignore.
Connection between CERN and ritualistic summoning of a sleeping giant, the horned god of Cernunnos, or even Melkart. Both are types of the rising, dying god. And Melkart slept for half the year, which may be why Elijah told the priests of Baal to call louder because he might be sleeping.
Now, I know most of you, or all of you, have heard the stories of Baal. We're starting to hear about all this Baal talk when it comes to the elites, especially in like the E-files and those circles of the occult. So now you should start seeing those connections I was talking about. Now, this is more of an extreme example, but this is the Mandela Effect, and some are suspecting that this started when CERN was turned on, when the Large Hadron Collider was actually turned on. That's when we saw things happen, and some say that it knocked us outside of our own reality, and that's why certain things that we thought were a certain way when we were kids, or even just a few years ago, are completely different.
So let's zoom in. Watch the EI change to an AI right before your very eyes, and then right back. So how is this possible, and why is it even happening? So this is Max Laughlin. He's just 13 years old and considered to be one of the smartest kids alive. Max believes that the culprit is actually CERN, or more specifically the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. He says that when scientists smash particles together at nearly the speed of light, then they may have ripped open reality and shifted us into a completely different timeline. And when he was asked about the Mandela Effect, he gave an answer that connects memory glitches to the fabric of reality itself.
There are other universes that are next to ours, and this actually relates to my theory of the Mandela Effect and how the particle accelerator altered the weight of one electron and therefore destroyed our universe and shifted us into the universe that's directly next to it, and therefore things are different in this universe.
How did it actually change?
Well, it never changed. We changed.
And this was, you think, when CERN Super Collider did its experiment?
Large Hadron Collider, yeah. We thought our universe would implode, and then it didn't, and we're like, oh, it's okay. Well, maybe it did implode. We just instantly got shifted to another universe.
And these are the type of things, these are the indicators of some people that were messing with reality by messing with these portals and colliders and things that are happening. Now, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. This is something that's very interesting because people know about the Large Hadron Collider. Many people do. But they don't know there's several different colliders around the world. It's not the only one. Several other particle colliders are currently operating around the world, primarily focused on specific types of collisions for different particle physics. We have the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, or the RHIC. That is in Brookhaven National Laboratory in New York. So that's in the United States. Then you have the Super KEKB. That's a High Energy Accelerator Research Organization, and that is in Japan. Then in Beijing, we have the Beijing Electronic Positron Collider 2, location Institute of Higher Energy Physics in Beijing, China. Then we have this one, not sure exactly how to pronounce that. It's a laboratory in Italy. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a party without Russia. VEPP4M location, the Budker Institute of Nuclear Physics in Russia. And it also says, for context, several notable colliders have been decommissioned in recent decades, such as the Tevatron, which was shut down in 2011, the Hera at DESY, Germany, shut down in 2007, and the PEP2, which was shut down in 2008. Now, there are future projects, including the Future Circular Collider at CERN, which is supposed to be 3 times larger than the Large Hadron Collider. But if this is used for what it could possibly be used for, some of the stuff we've been talking about in this video, and there's multiple of them, are they all kind of working the same angle? Are they trying to do the same thing? Or is this really for science? So many of you are thinking, how does this all tie together? What does Big E have to do with any of this? Well, let's look into it. Jeffrey Epstein had extensive connections to the scientific community, including physicists whose work intersected with particle physics and theoretical models relevant to experiments at CERN's Large Hadron Collider. He hosted conferences, provided financial support, and maintained personal relationships with several prominent physicists who collaborated on or contributed to CERN-related research. Let's talk about a couple of them. E had a 2006 Confronting Gravity conference. In March 2006, E organized and funded a conference on gravity and related physics topics in his private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The event brought together 21 physicists, including several with direct or indirect affiliations to CERN and particle physics. So he brought them directly to his island for a conference. That's not really normal, and that's kind of creepy. You have Maria Spyropoulou, an experimental physicist at Caltech who works on the compact muon solenoid detector at the LHC. So she works directly for the Large Hadron Collider. Her research involves high-energy particle collisions, which is what the scientists say it's for, to probe extra dimensions and other phenomena. Then we have Lisa Randall, a Harvard theoretical physicist specializing in particle physics and cosmology. Her work, including the Randall-Sundrum model, has implications for LHC experiments searching for extra dimensions and gravitons. You're seeing a theme here. David Gross, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, 2004, and string theorist. He's participated in CERN workshops, and his theoretical contributions underpin aspects of LHC research. He was an attendee for the E conference. And Stephen Hawking, the renowned theoretical physicist and cosmologist whose work on black holes and quantum gravity influenced particle physics discussions. He also attended E's conference. Then you have Lauren Krauss, a theoretical physicist and cosmologist. He attended and later received $250,000 from Epstein for his Origins project at Arizona State University. Big E's role extended beyond hosting. He actively participated in discussions and used these events to build influence in scientific circles. Now take all the stuff we're seeing in the E-files. We've already talked about it. Jerky, children, trafficking, occultism, satanic rituals, allegedly murder, and things like that as well. And now put that into him throwing a conference, a private conference on his island, and he's convincing them to do certain things. They're doing research and having conversations, and he's funding them, and they work for CERN. They work on the Large Hadron Collider. 2 of them, at least, are doing research specifically into other dimensions. Now, when you have all these people in media saying, oh, it's just pranks, right? They're just joking. Well, we have 2 scientists, at least, that are looking for interdimensionality. And they're meeting with Big E, who is a known satanic ritual cultist. At least that's what it seems. The allegations seem to point that direction in the files. Now, if you put that together, you have a situation where you have a multimillionaire funding scientists who are at the Large Hadron Collider, and these scientists, along with his manipulation and his beliefs, and possibly their beliefs as well, are trying to open dimensions using the Large Hadron Collider. That's how all of this fits together. That's insane. He was funding the research, and from what we've talked about, some of the research was to open portals in other dimensions. It also says these connections often continued even after his conviction of crimes, with scientists seeking his funding or advice. For instance, he donated to Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics $6.5 million in 2003, which modeled complex systems including those relevant to physics, and maintained an office there post-conviction. Big E described himself as a science philanthropist. Does that sound familiar? Do you know anyone else who is a science philanthropist because he's rich? And used his wealth to ingratiate himself with academics, sometimes dangling funding without formal grants. Some reports and online discussions speculate about deeper motives, such as influencing theoretical physics or ties to intelligence agencies. I would also add on, in addition to that, his cultist practices and the fact that a lot of these people he's funding were trying to open other dimensions, and the fact that CERN opened with a satanic style ritual, a cult style ritual, and the fact that they have Shiva at their doorstep. Now, this next piece is something I was not expecting in this research. Everything else kind of made sense to me. It kind of came together. But this last piece really puts a bow on it. There are several myths, religious interpretations, and conspiracy theories that attempt to link CERN's location, straddling the border between Switzerland and France near Geneva, to themes of devil worship, portals to hell, or demonic entities. I'm going to butcher these names, but we have the Apollyon Abaddon connection from Revelation. A prominent theory posits that CERN is built atop or near an ancient Roman site dedicated to the god of Apollo, which conspiracy theorists equate with Apollon or Abaddon, a figure from the Bible's book of Revelation. In Revelation 9:1 through 11, a star falls from heaven and is given the key to the bottomless pit, often interpreted as a portal to hell or the underworld, releasing locust-like creatures led by an angel named Abaddon or Apollyon. Proponents argue this ties into CERN's particle collisions, potentially opening portals to other dimensions or releasing demonic forces, aligning with end times prophecies. There is also a linguistic and historical basis. CERN's French side facilities are in the commune of Saint-Genès-Pouilly. The name Pouilly is claimed to derive from the Latin Apollicum, suggesting an ancient Roman settlement or temple honoring, again, Apollo. In Roman and Greek mythology, Apollo was associated with prophecy, destruction, and gateways to the underworld. Seeing a theme? And of course, there are critiques and debunks to this. People say that there's no evidence, there's no archaeological evidence in that area. But CERN itself describes itself as a modern scientific complex with no religious structures, and it attributes such theories to misinformation, even though they opened with a satanic cult-like ritual. I'd believe them. If you put all of this together, it paints a very dark picture. And this is something that people consider all day and say, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. But we know that conspiracy theories often come true, and many of them have been proven true over and over again. So be very careful when you hear the name conspiracy theory. Don't just immediately give up on something or just write it off, because many times it's going to come back and it's going to bite you and it's going to be true, or at least pieces of it will be true. Now, this is just allegations. This is just my opinion, but it would seem that this goes much deeper than just Big E and his island, and now Zorro Ranch and other places. All the people that are connected through all the different governments and businesses, like in our schools, we see with like Life Touch. And then we have scientists like CERN getting paid by Big E, also believing in opening portals and interdimensionality, having access to do it, and getting paid by E to do it, and them having private meetings on his island. This all, to me, looks like they're all moving one direction. All of these elites with all this money and too much time on their hands are doing occult practices. They're eating humans. They're sacrificing people. There are allegations that they were also impregnating women to use the children for other things. And we've already seen the allegations and the reports and the e-files of demonic practices and satanic rituals. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Do you think that these machines are innocent? Are they free of nefarious intent? Are they just for scientific purposes? Or, based on some of the things we've seen, could this be a connection to the occults and the other darkness that we've seen in the e-files? And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this around. And if you want to support the channel, there are links down in the description. And I'll see you on the next one.